Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Podcast, episode 173. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And this week, we got out the time machines again. We are going back in time to look at every single faction's biggest glow-up, asterisk except for those that are too new to have glow-ups because they're brand new.
Sounds good.
So yeah, we went back in time to look at old models versus new ones and see how Warhammer has grown aesthetically with time. Or in some factions' cases, not really. Space Marines.
Sure. I mean, there are some, actual new factions that, they haven't had enough time to really get a refresh, glow-up kind of thing. But, man, preparing for this episode, looked at a lot of old models, and, there's definitely another one of those, reminders of the different eras that Warhammer models has gone through, because some of those old ones, man, yikes.
At the same time, it's kind of weird how, we'll get into it as we go through this, but how not changed a lot of factions models are.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
We'll show some examples of it. It's a weird thing I noticed as we went through every single faction's models through the ages.
But alright, so the biggest glow-ups. I mean, this is obviously, we're looking aesthetically at the models, and there might be some personal bias in how we're creating these.
And we're trying to do ones only where the newer iteration is currently the model, not like the big glow up one got between 2nd edition and 5th edition.
Yeah, and I mean, there will probably be some random shout outs that we'll have to models that were interesting as we were going through it. But yeah, I mean, really there isn't too much. The expectation is there was an old model, and now there's a new model, and it looks substantially better. So let's just jump into it.
All right, shall we start off with Space Marines, or do we make them suffer and wait?
Let's make them wait just a moment and talk about Custodes first, because that should be pretty easy.
Sure. So Custodes is one of the factions that does not have glow-ups. They existed for 2017 through today. That's the entire existence of them. All the models are the current models. There might be some weird exception case, but that is it.
Yeah, I mean, there might be a glow up in the nearish future when certain things go away. Looking at you, Dreadnought, but we'll see.
Imperial Knights is another one like Custodes where there's no old Imperial Knights. They're all current other than repackages of kits, which doesn't really count for this.
Yeah, but with those easy ones out of the way, I guess, yeah, let's jump into Space Marines.
All right, so Space Marines is the one that shocked me the most in that I thought it would be easy to find a big pile of them and be like, damn, this is such a great upgrade. Man, this is such a great new design, because they've got so many and there's always a new fucking Space Marine.
I mean, it's also tough because not really bringing into the idea of every lieutenant update type thing.
Yeah, but looking through them, I was shocked at how this is one of the key examples of nothing is ever redesigned. It's the same model in higher quality over and over again. They're all the fucking same. They do not change a Space Marine sculpt no matter how dog shit it was 40 years ago. The last Space Marine Terminator squad from 2004 and the current Space Marine Terminator squad look the same. They do the exact same basic structure. There are zero risks taken with this faction for fear of losing some audience member.
And I think a big one here is the posing. It's one thing to do callback to iconic poses, but these are just generic units that are getting basically same kind of thing. But okay, to be fair, out of any of the factions, I think Space Marines are the one that having that concern about losing some of your audience kind of does exist.
Sure, heartless corporate reason of this is your lifeblood of income. You can always trick a Space Marine player into buying something.
Yeah, so this is the one faction that I'm yes, it does show it off quite prominently, but I don't think it's exactly incorrect to do.
Yeah, but it's just shocking that so many models are exactly the same as they were the last iteration. Or they were Primaris glow-ups where it was the redesign is something entirely different, where people will say it's not technically the old one because they coexisted while they were legacying the old ones quietly so we wouldn't bitch.
Yeah, there are some redesigns there, but like realistically, it's all basically the same. But there have been a couple changes. The Primaris Tech Marine kind of being a nice example of...
This is the one example I had of the Tech Marine going from when we started in end of 8th edition, the current Tech Marine was a Finecast Tech Marine that came with Finecast servitors in a blister pack thing that you could only buy on GW's website and was like eternally out of stock.
Yeah.
And near the end of 8th edition, there was some meta crap with needing the servitors, so it was doubly weird.
I remember being legitimately annoyed by trying to get servitors and still just haven't.
Yeah, because Grey Knights used them too, and
yeah.
We'll be talking about servitors again.
But the actual Tech Marine, the old Tech Marine, I didn't particularly hate from like, oh, there's a bunch of nonsense extension arms going on. That's kind of a neat idea, but like at the same time, it was clearly old.
It is the squarest, blockiest, barely sculpted look.
Yeah.
Everything is overly thick because they didn't have the ability to make anything thinner. His Dr. Octopus arms are all like as thick as his normal arm. There's nothing like artistic going on with it. It's all like barely functional as a model.
It feels a lot more Lego style of like block on block on block kind of thing.
Yes.
With less of the like pipes and tubes and connection arms. Like the new one has servitor arm tentacle thingy helping hold the axe. That's cool. That's a little extra.
Yeah, it's just a nice definition upgrade more than anything. Dropping the servitors, also 10 out of 10. Servitors barely belong in this game in the first place and definitely not in a Space Marine army.
But yeah, like even here, it's not a drastic change, but I guess it is big enough with like the axe and all that stuff that it's a nice glow up. I'm a big fan, but it was disappointing that like this is what we got when Space Marines have so many models that like the expectation was like, oh, we're gonna get something awesome from this glow up.
Yeah, and if we're not banning the like Primaris equivalents of old Marine stuff, my go-to would be like the Gladiator, which is just the Predator but better.
But it hovers.
You put them side by side and you're like, wow, one of these is literally a box with a tank turret. The other one is trying things.
Yeah.
Or you can say the old box dread versus the new Redemptor dread chassis where one of them looks like it could do something on a battlefield.
All right, yeah, I could see that one. I do like the new ones.
But again, it's more awkward because like old dreads technically as we record this still exist for 5 minutes. GW is currently trying to empty their stock so they can throw them into the pit with the new Grey Knight Combat Patrol.
But yeah, I think let's move on from Space Marines and their weirdness. And let's talk Adepta Sororitas, because there's a couple big glow-ups and a shockingly solid glow-up, I guess.
Sororitas is one of the like cheating ones where they're a faction that hardly existed, had 0 updates for like 20 years, and then got a full refresh. So like you could pick basically any model and win. I do think my personal favorite of the bunch is the Dialogus, just because the original one is perhaps one of the best heads GW has ever made for all the wrong reasons.
I was gonna say, you sure about that?
Like the Catachan face.
Yeah.
It might be better. It's just more obscure because it's not currently on sale.
Yeah, that's about right. It's been a little while since the updated version has been out. But yeah, that old model, goddamn.
Show me your O face.
Yeah, right.
No, not literally.
Yeah, I think this is a great like example of a glow up of, yeah, it's clearly keeping the same like style and idea, just redesigning it completely essentially from ground up and making it better.
Yes. And I do think Sisters does the thing I accuse some of these factions of the least, which is the being unwilling to change a single thing about the old model. Sisters did a lot of not just the updated sculpt, but like, hey, we could probably show this better. We don't have to do this exact same model's pose in the exact same way. There is some of that with like the Sisters of Battle and stuff where they're like the exact same but in HD.
Yeah, it's not gonna be like every single model was completely redesigned, but that one's fine-ish. I think a great example is Celestine for like, this is redesigned.
Yes. And props to Celestine, because the original model, like, yes, it's old shitty Finecast model, but
Not terrible.
it's pretty solid at doing a different interpretation of Celestine that I think the idea is sculpted well. We ignore the face on GW models, especially of this age. You just put your thumb over it while you're looking at it and you're like, okay, I get the general idea they were going for.
That said, the new model
Yeah.
is quite nice. And comparing the two, they're different, right? Like, it's one of those, like, there was a reimagining, but there's a lot of callback at the same time.
Yes. I really like this as an example of a really good redesign. I'm still saying Dialogus is by far the front runner just for the face. But Celestine is a really fun glow up, even though the original was good.
All right, so moving on to AdMech, and
look, it's servitors. There are brand new servitors that are out that do not look like the old 2005 or whatever servitor Finecast garbage that is.
Yeah, those servitors were never good. Like, they were only used as like a necessity kind of thing. The new ones legitimately look cool. They look too cool to be servitors. Almost, right?
I generally dislike servitors. The new servitors are pretty good, which coming from me translates to they are extremely well done for what they are.
Yeah.
However, there's one that we found while we were digging through all of AdMech's range that we just want to give a shout out to. The Castellan robot, comparing the current sculpt with the 1988 Rogue Trader sculpt. It's shocking how similar it is.
Yeah. Clearly the new one is better.
It's leagues better in execution, but it's shocking going from 1988 to like 2015 or 16. And there's that much of the exact same idea with like the side gun coming off the backpack on the back and the big round bulbous body.
Yeah. I mean, I think they did a good job of taking the idea there, refining it, and like just doing it slightly better in every aspect. Like, the posing is not quite the blocky nature, but it's also not this like, let's go wild. Like, the back gun turret thing is clearly they were worried about the size of the attachment arm there. So like, okay.
Yeah, because that age, they're all metal, so.
Yeah, so it's like, do all of that, but just better. and they nailed it in every aspect there, as far as I'm concerned.
And it's fun going from the like, I can barely tell what the artist wanted this to look like with the original sculpt to a very clean aesthetic design that works. It's got actual art direction to it on the new model, but is still based off the old design.
There's clearly a stylized idea of art going on with the new one, whereas the old one, just you could tell the limitations that like production was forcing upon the model, essentially, which just ripped away a lot of the aesthetics. And to see them compared to each other is like, oh wow, you were able to actually like do stuff now artistically that you weren't able to before. Yeah, I think it's a great glow up, but the servitors are so much of a defining change.
All right, so IG was actually difficult for me.
Yeah, there's a couple.
It felt like cheating to do Forge World stuff, so I stayed away from anything there. Looking at the main range, there's actually a lot of vehicles that are just old enough that they could end up refreshed soon. So like, there wasn't that much that changed between like the sculpts that are currently on sale and like the original sculpts before them. They're just blocky vehicles.
It's interesting that you have a call out for the Sentinels.
Oh no, the Sentinels is one of the ones I have a call out for in the fact that they look good in both iterations.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, there isn't really that much of a change.
No, that's the type of thing I'm talking about though, where you've got the current sculpt and its previous one both look fine. Like, there's no real change. So like, looking through it, I've actually got one that I want to give a shout out to, which is the Khazarkins from 2003. They're clearly old, but they hold up well. They dodge James Workshop face. Their helmets don't look bad. Their armor looks pretty decent. Everything about them looks okay. Like, yes, the new one is better done, exact same idea.
It is very much a we talked about like, oh, it's the same thing. It's very similar.
It goes down to like literally the sergeant in the exact same pose on the box.
Yeah.
They tried to do exact call outs to that kit. They understood what the assignment was. They did it. But like that one is a shout out of like, it's an upgrade, but like the original wasn't horrible.
And I think that is one of those like, when the old model is good and doesn't really need updates, then like it's okay to have more of a like faithful rendition that's just updated. But really you don't want to do it all the time. That just kind of, it feels lazy. But yeah, I think there was another clear winner for the glow up.
Yeah, so Ratlings go from their old terrible fine cast look to look I'm still not a fan of, but at least it's all right. I get the Hobbit's cute idea.
Yeah, I think that this is one showing a bit of your personal bias. You don't particularly want that aesthetic. I think they did a great job of,
again, for the assignment, it's well done.
and like clearly the old one to the new one is it's a very obvious glow up going on there.
It's showing something with, so like the front and center guy on the old sculpt having an exact equivalent on the new sculpt.
Yeah.
There's little things like this that they can't help themselves even when it wasn't good in the first place. And that's what we'll get into on some of these, but like Space Marines was full of it the whole way through. It's like they refused to change the idea for a model once it's existed. But yeah, it's the best that I could find for an example in Guard. Honestly, if anything, it just shows that like Guard wasn't awful before, it was just old, so the range refresh really just brought them up to speed. And yes, if they ever redo Catachan, it's automatically going to be in first place. Unfortunately, that kit is still sold.
I mean, it would be pretty hard to fuck up and make it worse. That's true. I don't know. I think the Ratlings have done a pretty good job of actually being a glow up, and I don't expect a bunch of their like World War II tank to get a huge glow up.
I'd say the Dorn kind of already is the glow up for the Russ. Like it looks less like a toy.
Right.
The question is, will they have what it takes to make the Russ look less like a toy when they redo it?
Yeah, I don't think so, but
I hope so. I don't think so. It's one of the things I noticed while seeing clips from, what was it? They made some CG show off thing for like one of the games, like a CG cutscene or something. Everyone was high def. And then a Lehman Russ rolls by. And you're like, sweet God, that stands out. It's like a fucking toy. Everything else they're trying to make super realistic, and then you have the fucking Tonka truck driving by. It's things like that that stick out to me when it's like, this aesthetically doesn't match the rest of the setting. It matches the setting from 2000 when they could make no details smaller than your finger.
Yeah, I mean, I could see an update to it. I don't know, man. It's so hard because like this is another one of those concerns like Space Marines have of if you make a major deviation from some of the like iconic ones, there's, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna like legitimately piss it off?
No, I don't think you have that with Guard as long as you base it off of something a Treadhead will just fucking coom over.
I guess that's true. There are so many World War II tank options that like you could just riff off of.
Or like newer tanks. It doesn't have to be exactly World War II. They like borrowing from Nam aesthetics and other stuff. They can go all over the place for it. The Russ is just the one that just stands out as so rough looking compared to all the others. Like if you were redoing the Russ, you probably just make it like the 30k Malkador, where like you elongate the proportions on it so that it looks less like a square that's too tall to look serious in the setting.
Yeah.
Like I have trouble explaining, but like proportions wise, the Russ has issues.
I think that's fair, especially with the 40k scenery changing with Primaris era.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable take on it. I mean, it's not like that big of a change, so I don't think it's one of those like drastic, holy shit, I can't believe. But at the same time, it is still a fairly big update kind of thing. I don't know if they're going to do that. I feel like at some point, like the Ross is just the Ross and they just release new things. But yeah, like 30k has some interesting design elements to like spicing things up.
Yeah, even the 30k Russ isn't as bad. Like, they tried to make it less cartoony. Mixed results, but it's fine.
I think that that's the kind of thing that I would more expect, but I don't know. It shows that like GW designers have like the ability to do some of this glow up stuff on some of the older models, tank models specifically there. But let's move on. Oh, it's Grey Knights time.
Grey Knights is a great example, though.
I mean, it is, but I wish there was more.
Sure, yeah, there is that. But it is a great example of showing off reimagining the character. Like, if this was a Space Marine proper character, he would have the exact same holding the sword, hugging it, hoping that you don't notice him. The timid look to him that he has, because that's every one of those sculpts. When looking at the old versus the new, they did not vary a foot placement.
Yeah, the new Crow has like a fairly drastic pose change.
Yes, and having the sword being like on fire and having some character to it, giving you something cool to play with like OSL on and stuff when you do yours. There's a lot to it that is an improvement over the old one, while still clearly being the exact same character.
Right. There are a lot of call outs to being like, yeah, this is clearly the same, but just different and better and cooler and more badass in every way.
Exactly. It's basically what you're hoping for on a Space Marine redesign.
Yeah.
It's the like having enough balls to like move the model around and have a different pose and maybe like jazz it up a little bit with all the tech you've learned over 20 something years.
Definitely. I get not doing such a massive redesign on every single like squad that's getting an update, because yeah, it's going to be easier to make more generic poses and like poses that we've already seen, like this works. But especially when it's like a more elite a character, yeah, this is the Crow glow up is exactly what you want. Shows off every aspect of major call outs, a clear intention of this is the old model and we're just going to make it better without having to worry too much about, oh, let's make sure it's the exact same, just nicer. Yeah, this is a massive win for Grey Knights. I'm just waiting for Drago now. Do same thing. Get rid of this shitty sword.
And all your paladins and all of your strike marines.
Those, I have less expectation of such a drastic glow up. I'm just something like Space Marine of the same but better is fine, whatever. But yeah, I think Crow shows off that they really can do fancy stuff, even with the Space Marine as its general aesthetic.
All right, so moving to Chaos. CSM has the obvious choice, the most famous example of this, which is Abaddon going from old no arms to his current sculpt. This is, again, what I'm talking about, where they like do not change the model in any way.
What are you talking about? They rotated the hand 180 degrees. Come on.
They moved the hand so it's up instead of down 30 years later.
Yeah, it's basically the same model, but
infinitely done better.
Yes, just every aspect of it is done so much better that like looking at them, it's wow, this new model is so fucking cool. Which it is really, really quite a nice update. Like CSM has several nice updates that they've done.
And that's the sad part, is like Abaddon takes the easy win, obviously. But Possessed deserve a shout out for how good they look now. Compare them to like the 2007 Possessed, which look like, I want to say they look like a specific toy that you saw an advertisement for as a kid.
Yeah, I feel like I have a similar, I've seen this before and it was in Toys R Us aisle when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I think that the Possessed show the like, okay, yeah, this old model wasn't doing it. Let's try again from scratch.
You can just start again. It's okay. You can get the point across with entirely different sculpts.
Yeah, the new ones, they look pretty cool and they are quite a bit different from the old ones, but I don't think it's necessarily like the, oh, that look nothing like a Possessed, right? Like, no, sure, it's still like aesthetically when you're thinking of what Possessed should look like, this seems about right. The new one works. It doesn't have to be the old, but slightly different. I think this is just such a nice example of let's try a different idea since the old one kind of sucked.
And then we've got like the Obliterators, which look at the originals. This was almost the pick over over Abaddon, but Abaddon's just too classic of a pick. Like, it is the example of something that famously had no arms because it was metal and the arms would fall off him constantly. And he just didn't look very good to begin with. Going to what he is now is quite the upgrade. But like, the Obliterator's close. That old model, man. Taking the orc dump on the battlefield.
Yeah. Dude, those old models are so rough. I really do like the new one as well. That's a clear update there. But yeah, I also enjoyed the update that they did to the Chaos Sorcerer. Not quite as long of a time range though, because like a bunch of what we were talking about was like 2002 or like what was Abaddon, like 1996 or something like that. The Chaos Sorcerer wasn't that old, like 2012, but I like the new one because it looks like a sorcerer.
Yes, that is a great example of like making the model a better representation of what it's supposed to be. Hey, this guy's magic. Why did we draw him with a sword and a gun originally?
Like, I don't hate the old one. It's a fine model. The new one looks like a really cool Chaos Sorcerer. Just CSM in general has had a lot of glow-ups, and I wonder if that's just because a lot of the old stuff sucked.
All right, so into Demons. There's the obvious cheating answer, I will not say automatically wins, which is all of the greater demons, because technically they went from like a 2002 sculpt to their new sculpts that are infinitely better and not metal or fine cast, depending on which one you're looking at.
Yeah, there's some pretty rough ones.
It helps that they're scaled up like 150% on the new models. Like, I use my old Kairos that I got in a collection as one of my demon princes, and he's a little on the small side.
It's not amazing. That one is reasonable model.
Yeah, look, they all exist. They all got huge upgrades, but it feels like cheating looking at the Bloodthirster. One of them was like, this is a in my head versus execution type deal of like, I'm gonna make the most badass thing you've ever seen. Oh, this is what I'm capable of, huh?
Yeah, I see that a lot.
For actual glow-ups, Be'lakor gets a shout out just for his old model looking pretty cool. Like, given the age.
Yeah, I mean, like, the new model is amazing and does a great job, but the old one, shockingly, is pretty cool as well.
And then the actual winner for me, like, there were quite a few spread throughout the different gods here, and some of them, I argue, older sculpts looked better than newer sculpts, Horrors being a famous example of this.
Yeah.
The Fleshhounds, though, get the easy win here. The new Fleshhounds are a beautiful kit. I loved painting them. And the old Fleshhounds look like they're from 2001, right?
Something like that, yeah.
They're from 2008.
That's not amazing.
No, I didn't realize they were that new until I just double checked the dates.
Yeah, I think it's tough because, like, the old ones, they're fine for being an old model.
They're not fine for 2008. Nuh-uh.
No. The new ones just, yeah, they're so much more dynamic and interesting. And I think a decent amount of it is just they're able to do more complex sculpting.
That is the obvious all of these have. Of new model gets to be more HD.
Yeah, I think the old one is tough because, like, the posing of the old ones, they're pretty bland and boring.
I think it goes beyond posing. The old ones look like they have Play-Doh legs.
That's true.
They look like they're going to move in stop motion.
Yeah, Fleshhounds, the new ones, they're pretty cool. Big glow up there, and Chaos Demons in general, not bad.
All right, World Leaders have an obvious winner here. It's the Berserkers.
Yeah.
The old Berserkers look horrible. They were just the worst.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong.
New Berserkers look great.
The new Berserkers just do look really cool.
Yeah, now that I put some of them together, they're pretty nice looking. I do want to give a shout out in a positive way. Lordon Juggernaut. So like the new one, solid sculpt. I love me a Juggernaut in the first place, and it looks good. But the old one is kind of a Chad.
You're insane.
You know he's made of metal and weighs 6 pounds.
I mean, it's from 1996, so like, yes.
Kind of a Chad. Look at that Juggernaut. He a thick boy.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not sure he can lift his head all the way up. I think it's blocked if he tries to lift his head up any more than it currently is by his massive fucking shoulders.
Definitely got the classic CSM shoulder pads going on there, but as is a dog boar thing.
Eric discovers rhinos today. It's like a bull rhino. It's both.
Looking at the 1996 version, I'm not sure I see rhino. But yeah, I mean, for the era, it's fair. But comparing the two and ignoring the first one was made in 1996.
Yeah, sure. It's a glow up.
A bit of a glow up there.
But that is an adorable juggernaut.
It is adorable. Sure. Okay. Let's move on to Thousand Sons. And
they were a problem. Not because the new models are bad. It's because, damn, old Thousand Sons aged like wine.
Shocking how cool a bunch of the old models are. And like the new ones are great as well. But like they just aged so well compared to so many other things.
Old Ahriman on foot looks like new Ahriman. It's the same dude. The real difference is they realized to give him some sorcerer stuff going on instead of holding a gun. They figured out that casters should probably be doing something.
And then forgot about that in rules.
But like Thousand Sons is the Keanu Reeves of aging here.
Yeah, Ahriman definitely shows that off.
There's one example, though, that technically exists that we can give by default. Zongor. So, new Zongor, whether you love them or hate them, they look fine.
They look pretty good, honestly, they do. As much as I'm kind of sick of seeing them all over the place. Yeah, they look good.
Technically, Zongor have an old kit from like 1990 that actually predates Thousand Sons.
I feel like this is kind of cheating at this point.
It is a thing that exists. They're older than the first Rubric Marines from what I was finding through research. But yeah, it was basically just goat dudes you paint blue.
All right. I mean, yeah, that's a hell of a glow up. Because I don't know where you found this picture of these, but goddamn.
This is someone who painted them up recently. I just stole this off the internet because someone actually had like a decent high def picture of the models.
I was thinking that same thing. I was like, goddamn, are those models old? And also, what kind of time wizard bullshit do we have here with the photo quality? They didn't have that kind of shit in 1990s, especially not for GW.
A lot of the models we're looking at, we had to like scour the internet for old models that have pictures taken of them from not a magazine in 1992.
But yeah, I think Zongor, if we're ignoring that like these models were before the actual faction existed, that's a pretty good glow up. And yeah, Thousand Sons, well done for having old models that look cool.
So Death Guard. Death Guard was a little bit hard because other than the one that's gonna win, Death Guard kind of looked cool even when they were old and derpy. Original Typhus, like the 2003 sculpt, looks pretty good.
It's not bad.
I love the new sculpt, but like even the old sculpt, not a bad try.
It's pretty cool and like it's got some solid aesthetics going on there. Obviously the new one was just able to do it better, but yeah, not bad.
But yeah, there's one standout, and that's the actual Plague Marines.
Holy shit, dude, those old Plague Marines.
They were clearly Marines and they clearly suffered from a plague. I don't understand what the problem with those sculpts are. That's why they've got pencil thighs.
You're not wrong. I am so glad that the new Plague Marines apparently deleted the old Plague Marine file and started from scratch.
They kept one aesthetic. They kept the hoof toes. That's the one bit of aesthetic they were like, you know what? There was an idea here.
Yeah, because like a lot of Death Guard was just like redone in what, like 2017? Is that 2016?
Yeah, 2017 or whatever was when they came out with 8th edition.
So like a lot of it was redone there.
I mean, this just shows off extremely well. 14 years different, night and day quality. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, truly this is another one of those like GW has improved. As much as we can give them shit for some of the models being too much of a one-to-one, man, the Plague Marines show off. You've improved your model quality quite a bit.
Yeah, you just have to let them go off of the beaten path a little. Let them play with the aesthetics and try something, and they deliver gold.
Hell yeah.
Or they deliver the new Sanguinary Guard. 50-50.
Yeah, and one or the other. Emperor's Children, there's the pretty obvious Lucius.
Yeah, it's that or Noise Marines, honestly. Not counting the $35 single model sculpt.
Okay, I was like, hold on a damn second.
The actual Noise Marine upgrade sprue / kit from forever ago versus new ones. They're so much better at the same idea.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate the old one for like what it was.
They're awful, Eric.
Compared to the new ones where it is very clearly, we designed Noise Marines from scratch based on like no previous input from one.
The only thing I'll say say is previous input is they looked at the derpy, weird upgrade sprue weapons, the like Forge World hunk of junk, and they were like, what was this trying to be? And they made the like beautifully sculpted ones that are on the new Marines. But like you can see that there was an idea to do that on that old upgrade sprue.
Right.
It just had no execution power whatsoever.
Yeah, the Noise Marines definitely look a lot better now. But dude, I don't know, I still think it goes to Lucius because that old model looks so dumb.
The one thing I'll give the old model, I do love the way they did the faces coming out of the armor.
Just like stretch kind of thing across.
Yeah, which technically the new one does it on the shoulder pad and the chest plate a little, but it's more subtle. It's much more serious as a take on the idea. But I kind of also love the original's try at it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
The new one does it better. But
I think the new one just does that better. And like that was necessary. The old one had the idea there.
But yeah, I generally think the new Lucius is a very cool sculpt. I know I've seen people do variations of it that color my interest in it because I've seen some really sick stuff, but I still think Noise Marines at least get a shout, even if you're going to overrule with Lucius.
Yeah, it's tough because like there's also the old custom Noise Marine from...
No, that doesn't count.
But it's so cool. All right. I mean, that basically wraps up Chaos because Chaos Knights don't have anything. They're new.
Yeah, Chaos Knights have the same issue we did with the others. But Xenos, every member of Xenos gets to actually be here. And some of them have some wild redesigns compared to the very safe stuff they do with Imperium and Chaos. With Imperium, at least. Chaos had some variety. But Xenos is where they go hard on redesigns. Let's start with Necrons, just because it's like my favorite. It's Xeris. The old sculpt is just a guy with spider legs. He's not even like interesting in any way, other than he has 4 legs instead of 2 legs.
Which, I mean, that is something.
But the new sculpt is possibly one of the hardest sculpts, like goes the hardest in Necrons. God, do I love it. There is so much going on with it. It is so fun to paint this model. It is a living nightmare to put together. I didn't even think I did a good job painting mine, and I love looking at it.
Yeah, I think it's based on the old one, but like they took off all the limitation and we're like, go fucking wild.
They abstracted the idea. They're like, he's got a single eye in the middle. He's got an eye off up to the side like a spectacle thing a doctor would have. He's got 4 robot spider legs and a staff. And they wrote that down and they're like, let's go wild with that idea.
And like the staff has stuff on both ends going on there. All right, go. And man, that is a hell of a glow up, dude. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think Necrons has a couple options. I actually really like the new warrior sculpt and the way it does like the horror and the half decayed look better. But I know there's also argument for perfectly intact Necrons as a design. There's argument for why you would want that, but like you can't beat Xeris. It's so good.
No, that's fair. I was thinking like the flayed ones because like I didn't know that Xeris had an old model.
I think the flayed ones is an example of it's just an HD upgrade. There's like nothing different about it except for they made it $1 billion to purchase 5 points of models.
I guess, yeah, it is, but at the same time, it feels like they did such a better job of it.
Yeah, but like Imhotep and Orokin are the other example to me of that same thing of like, that's the same model.
I mean, Orokin is the same model.
It is the same model. You just made it not fine cast.
At least the flayed ones have, they changed like the core design to like the face of the Necron going on there. Orokin is literally the same model.
So that's Necrons. Drukhari has a very easy win. Witches. I don't even like witches, but then I saw what old witches looked like. Oh my god. I will give you, I respect Drukhari model history. I get that a lot of people think 3rd edition Drukhari was like peak design for the era, and I don't really disagree. I'm not a fan of Old Hammer for the most part, but 3rd edition Drukhari is a pretty cool look.
It's definitely interesting, yeah.
But not witches. No. Go back to the drawing board on those.
I think the updated ones are pretty solid. There's definitely some additional updates that could be done. A lot of Drukhari could be updated again. Some of it's starting to look kind of old, But yeah, the difference between the actual old witches in the update.
Drazar would be another possibility, but like the witches were awful looking. Drazar just looked weird.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
He was like a praying mantis man with how he held his blades, which I guess you could argue he kind of still does, but like it's not like it used to be.
It's just the posing just does better job of that style of blade wielding, I guess. I don't know what to call it there. That's fair. Either of those makes sense. Witches probably would be the more obvious update.
All right, I've cheated a bunch. You want to do one of yours?
All right, yeah, let's talk orcs. And there's a couple.
Eric, tell me it's the commandos. I know you want to. You're holding it inside. You will not trick me into thinking you're not trying to just scream commandos and call it good.
I don't know, man. There's Zogrod. That's a hell of a glow up.
Zogrod doesn't count. He didn't exist for the entire period between those models.
I mean, you brought up the Zongor, so I'm just,
But they existed rules. Well, I guess technically there was a hole there, but you could do better.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Big Mac.
All right. I love the new Big Mac. It's one of my favorite orc models ever. Holy shit, I love that model.
Especially when you compare it to the old one. Oh, poor Big Mac.
Yeah, so Big Mac's had a lot of variations over time. There's the shock attack ones that are like from 2014 or whatever. There's the one in mech armor or whatever, the mega armor one. That one technically existed, but technically the current Big Mac is a redo of like the fine cast 2006-2007 Big Mac models.
Yeah, the Big Mac with shock attack gun got its own little update, and it's pretty nice now, but all the other like the Big Mac and mega armor that you were saying, that needs an update as well as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, the actual like Big Mac, that's quite a big glow up. But I do think you're correct that commandos are the actual choice there, and holy shit are the new commandos so fucking cool.
I love these models.
No bias whatsoever, clearly.
Eric's biased, but so am I. Like, I don't play orcs at all. Commandos are so cool.
And like the old ones, they worked for the era.
They were fine. There's the Forge World upgrade sprue too that we're not even going to give the time of day to.
Yeah, whatever. But we're no longer in 2006, so those old commandos don't really fit in. The new updated commandos, oh boy, these are really, really cool. I think they did a great job of just going wild with individualizing all of them, which is so cool.
I think like most modern orcs look amazing versus the old orcs. Everything from boys to the tank bustas to the commandos, like all of the new sculpts are beautiful looking. Boys is a terrible kit, but it's a beautiful sculpt.
I was gonna say the boys has got some of its own problems.
Boys has that like sour taste in your mouth where it's like it's so close to being amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many good picks.
Commandos are just like the clear standout as far as I'm concerned. But from there, I guess let's talk Tyranids or something.
Sure. So Tyranids.
It's the Carnifex, right?
No, the Carnifex gets a shout out. The Carnifex, it is a sculpt from 2005. And it still looks amazing. The Screamer Killer looks like dog shit, but the Screamer Killer's not the Carnifex.
I actually quite like the Screamer Killer.
No.
But it's not the Carnifex. The 2005 Carnifex, it's small. It looks cool. It's just kind of tiny now.
I would say its existence has changed. It's not as much of like the big bad mega monster as it used to be. Like looking at like Space Marine 2, it's not like 10 times the size of a Space Marine or anything. So it's not like the 2005 model is like wildly out of scale for it. It's just everyone else got like mega dreadnoughts and stuff that are like so much bigger that this feels small now. So it could use like a size bump, but it's not like 10 times too small like the Tyrant. The Hive Tyrant's a tiny boy.
Nah, the Carnifex is classic.
I will say the Carnifex is an okay pick for this, is like the 2001 Carnifex, like the old metal one, like kind of ass.
Kinda.
So like the Carnifex could get a shout out just as possibly being the pick while being 20 years old.
True.
But the answer's the Biovore.
Yeah, man. The new one is just amazing.
It's a beautiful new model. And it helps that it's being compared to the old Biovore. part.
Which, like, okay.
No, you cannot defend that model.
I'm not saying the old one was good. No. But it clearly has, like, ideas that they took and were like, okay, I understand the artistic intentions here. We're just gonna do it better without limitations. And the new one's just so cool.
Step 1, we're going to make it look like a Tyranid and not a gorilla.
That is a, clear part going on there.
I am aware, for the old heads who are currently typing out angry comments, that old biovores in old lore were orcs that were eaten by Tyranids, which is why they look stupid. That's a terrible excuse for why the model looks stupid.
I did not know that. That makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, there was like old lore for like a bunch of the different Tyranids are different species getting eaten into the biomass. That's not how Tyranids work anymore. Now they just absorb all data and make weapons based on it.
Whatever is necessary.
Yeah.
I could see, okay, I understand the orc.
Yeah, you see the orc face now and why it looked so stupid.
Yeah, and then like, so yeah, you take that away and you turn it into like an actual Tyranid, and now we've got the new biovore. All right. I can see what happened there. The timeline's making some sense.
So yeah, I think the biovore is probably in like the top 2 or 3 of these globally for glow up.
I think it does a great job of showing like we can really make big changes on the old model and still keep it called the same model name.
Yeah, they tend to be more okay with that with Xenos. It's just they will not touch Space Marine aesthetics or something. Like,
yeah,
they are so afraid to do any variation on a lot of those. All right, since we're already talking Tyranids, let's just do Genestealers while we're here. These all are cheating because original Genestealers are all Rogue Trader models and are just awful looking. So literally every single model in the range could be a solid pick, but special shout out to the Patriarch, just in case you've never seen the original Patriarch model.
I mean, I kind of love it for being so stupid. It's just like with this little throne going on.
The fact that he's got a mini throne is adorable.
That kind of sells the model as like, all right, this is peak.
He just looks like a big fat alien mob boss.
Yeah.
He's even got like a ring on his finger. I'm aware that like old lore Genestealers were not Tyranids. They were their own type of alien. But the modern Genestealer look is so much better. Even scrotum foreheads and all, which is the one aspect they kept from Rogue Trader, was scrotum foreheads.
But like, yeah, as much as I enjoy the old fat mob boss alien look, the new Patriarch, that design, it works so much better. Very cool. All right, so from Genestealers, I guess Tau?
Sure. Tau's a fun one. They haven't existed for all that long in the grand scheme of things here, only 24 years.
True.
They've had a couple of updates over the time. The problem is a lot of them are basically just fixing an old sculpt without actually changing the design of the sculpt.
Yeah, I think there was a 2004-ish to 8 or whatever, that like time frame. They did a redesign on a bunch of like the suits and stuff like that, but it was basically just update to new methods, not really change anything.
And like the one that you could argue later on was like a true change to the kit is like the broadside, but the original broadside is adorable. Fight me. There's no way I'm going to say that got upgraded. He was cute.
Yeah, fair.
There's a lot of like possibilities in here, but none of them are really easy to pick. My go-tos are honorable mention to Farsight. Not that the old model looked terrible, it's just it was fine cast.
And the new model looks really cool.
And the new model is one of the sickest models. Dear God, it's so good.
Yeah, I think that would be a perfectly fine pick for the glow up here.
But the actual pick has to be the Crude Hounds.
Holy shit.
Memes about 150 Crude Hounds, blah, blah, blah aside. God, the Crude Hound update.
So, like, I don't actually like the new ones that much.
Oh, they're fine. They look like hyenas, kind of.
I think they're a little boring. They're like the hyena look. So, like, I get, like, the aesthetic is not supposed to have them have, like, a bunch of shit going on. But then, like, the posing is just bland as well. So, like, I don't think the Crude Hounds are amazing. But, my God, the old version. What the fuck actually is that?
Play-Doh. This is what I was talking about with the flesh hounds in Khorne. It's Play-Doh. They look like they are going to walk in stop motion.
Oh my god, it really does look like stop motion, especially with like the paint job that we're looking at.
That's the official GW one.
That looks like an actual like Play-Doh stop motion figure that would be like, oh, this is the weird hyena alien thing
that the hero's going to jab a spear at the edge of the screen in some old like 1950s movie.
Exactly. So I'm good with picking the Crouthounds as a fantastic glow up, and I think they could even do it again and do better. But wow. Guess I did not know that the old Crouthounds were quite that.
All right, before we do Aeldari, the real last one, let's spend 1 second on Votann. They technically have an option. It's cheating.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, like, Votann are just new. What are you talking about? But I guess technically, yeah, the squats, sort of.
Yeah, squats existed. Squats had trikes. Squats was a stupid idea, and squatting them was a good thing.
Wow.
Votann is just the way better take on dwarves.
Yeah.
I'd love to see more Votann stuff with a little bit more going on, but they just do the idea so well compared to squats. Like, look at the original squat sculpts. No.
Even ignoring the fact that they're from 1990 or whatever, there's not really anything special. They're just dwarfs with guns.
Yeah.
There's no real feel going on there from the old squats, whereas Votann actually have an aesthetic. So, yeah, I guess technically that would be a glow up. Yes. Votann themselves.
Votann's existence
glowed up from squats.
Yes. All right, Aeldari, the actual last one here. Look, they just got a whole update to like everything except Karandras, but whatever.
No, they just removed Karandras.
So there's a lot to choose from. To rattle off a few of them. Eric, what was your pick that I cannot see the difference?
So, I mean, yeah, there was like Jane Czar and all that stuff, but I feel like the Shining Spears actually have a pretty great glow up, even though Brad somehow doesn't see any difference between these models. He's clearly blind. The new ones look so much cooler.
Nope, those are the same thing.
But I don't think they're like the biggest option here. I do think that they did a great job.
In a similar vein, the Guardians. The original Guardian kit versus the new one is just an HD remaster, right? Like, it's the same kit.
Yeah, the fact that you're bringing up saying it's the same thing, I'm like, no, this is the same thing.
But it deserves a shout out for a single reason, and that is the absolute awful faces on the old Guardian kit. Holy shit.
They're so bad.
Who let the Beatles in here?
Wow. What a fucking jab. That's ridiculous.
Look at that haircut. Look at that face. Look at it.
Yeah, clearly one of the Beatles.
That's what I assume they all looked like.
Yeah.
What was the one's name? Ringo?
Yeah, Ringo Starr.
I look at this and I think Ringo.
I don't know, man. I was thinking more like Paul McCartney, clearly.
This is where I asked the legitimate question. Paul McCartney was one of the Beatles.
Yeah.
I do not know the Beatles at all. The only two I could tell you by name is John Lennon, because he got killed.
And Ringo Starr, because his name's Ringo.
Yeah. That's like the two Beatles I know.
Yeah, and then there's Paul McCartney, and then the one that I generally forget is George Harrison.
Okay.
But all right, so yeah, ignoring the like head update there, I'm not sure I'm gonna agree that that's a particularly great glow up.
No. So we could also argue all of the Phoenix Lords, except Mugen Ra, because he always looked like a Chad.
Yeah, he got like his original, and then he got another update, or was his update just like in 20?
No, he got updated before the others, but it was still last edition.
Oh, okay. But either way, yeah.
He always looked cool, but the other ones were all amazing glow-ups. Rip Karandras.
The real, true glow-up, though, is the Warp Spiders.
Yeah, this is like the actual winner. It is, in air quotes, an HD remaster. All of the normal guys look like the same pose, more or less the same gear, but dear God, it's so much better done. And then you get to the Sergeant. The Sergeant alone would have won it.
I feel like the Sergeant is kind of necessary for this, because like everything else, there's a lot of 1-to-1, and it's just like, yeah, yeah, this is just the HD update. The Sergeant just actually changes and is so much better.
The coolest Spider-Man villain there, other than the actual Spider-Man villain that is their Phoenix Lord. Is she a Phoenix Lord? I don't know. She must be.
I assume so. The fact that you're asking is like...
I don't know if warp spiders are weird where they're not technically... Someone should make some good Eldar lore that's worth reading so I can remember Eldar lore.
Quick Google search says yes.
Okay.
Whether this is true or not, I don't know. I would assume so. It would have been weird if it wasn't.
I assumed so, but like Eldar lore gets weird.
But yeah, I think pretty good glow up.
So I guess there's one more.
Ah, yes. The Harlequins.
The Harlequins still get to be mentioned. So they technically existed in Rogue Trader. And honestly, it's crazy how one for one a bunch of these characters are.
It is.
Absolutely the same. Same pose and everything. The Death Jester, the exact same thing. The High Warlock, which became the Shadow Seer. The Solitaire, which is actually my pick.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's doing the same thing going on here. But
slightly better, just a little better.
They're all just way better in the new ones.
It's like Genestealers where everything is cheating. It's like I'm comparing a Rogue Trader sculpt, a sculpt literally older than us, to a sculpt from 2015.
And like, yeah, all the new ones just look amazing. And it's interesting that they are so close to like the design aesthetic that was from Rogue Trader and just done new and better, essentially.
Yeah, they were one of the ones that made me go back and look at more of them as I realized, wow, a bunch of these are just literally the same pose. Like the Solitaire, they made him jumping over something to keep the weird pose.
It is fascinating.
Yeah, and that's why like I started going back through and actually checking for that, and that's why it became such a like thing stuck in my head of like, for many factions, they do not like altering a single thing about even a pose.
Yeah, and I mean it makes sense. It's the easy, let's make sure that people know that this is not like an actual new model, it's just an update. We're just making it better.
There's the boomer bait too of, oh my god, it's just like I remembered from before I had back problems.
That is, yeah, fair. There definitely is some aspect of the, I remember N64 games looking so amazing. That's exactly how I remember it. And then you go back and actually play an N64 game and you're like, holy shit, this looks bad.
Off topic, I feel like I'm immune to that in the fact that I always felt like N64 games looked bad, even compared to like PS1 games and then PS2, which came out very slightly after. I feel like the N64 to me always felt like it was the very jank big 3D look. It was never trying for realism or anything.
Right. It's tough because like I don't think people think like realism's quite so much as just like it looked good and like fairly crisp and like played well, as opposed to like what it actually is, which is 240p. But it's just one of those like the way that you remember things is like, oh, it was so cool and awesome, and so like let's make sure we hit that same pose again and just make it better and make it like what you thought it was, kind of thing.
Final Fantasy X.
Yeah,
that would be the one, because I remember Final Fantasy X being the one that like blew me away as a kid of like, holy shit, these cutscenes look amazing, these characters look so good, and like it looks like Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
Where half the pictures you find online now are of the HD remake.
I was gonna say, it's nice, but like even the HD remake is like, oh, that's okay. Yeah, it's the same idea, which is why like it's tough to really hate on the fact that they don't do major update changes all the time. But at the same time, I don't know, it feels like they could do more. Like they clearly have the ability to do better.
I'd argue there's like a 50% hit rate on like truly going back to start on these like really well liked ones. Even the Solitaire, I joke it's the exact same pose, which it is. But the idea of doing the cool cloak and like the hooded look with the horns and all that, everything about it is infinitely better, other than, yes, I joke that the pose is the exact same.
But like even then, they took that upper body pose and had to make changes to kind of make it work in a not dumb way with like the rock and like jumping. That is a perfectly fair redesign. But I don't know, it's tough. I feel like a lot of the glow ups that we've shown here do a great job of showing that, yeah, GW can do quite well with maintaining the same idea but doing vastly better. And I think that they should continue doing doing that for several of the things, and Space Marines just, I guess that's just going to be the Space Marine problem.
Yeah, it always is.
Yeah, instead of like doing actual major redesigns, you just get a new model and those old ones go quietly away.
All right, but on that note, we are out of here for the week. But before you click off of this episode, do remember next week we are covering Elemental Council. It is a book club episode, so if you haven't read it yet, you have a week, or you could just not care about spoilers. That'd be fine too. But it is an honestly pretty good book. I think it's going to be a good discussion.
I've got a bit of reading to do this week.
How far are you, Eric?
I'm like a third of the way in.
Oh, God.
I got a whole week. It'll be fine.
Time to listen to the book while blasting maps.
Something like that.
All right, but on that note, we are out of here for the week.
Sounds good.